The world has no shortage of violent human beings, but right now all the eyes seem to be on one criminal. If you have been on Netflix recently, you would know what a hot topic Jeffrey Dahmer has been, but wait till you see what his brother has been up to. In this video, we're talking about Dahmer's mysterious younger sibling, David, and you're going to be shocked with what we have for you. First up, where's David today? Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer Story, Netflix's next limited true crime series, explores the life and crimes of the American serial murderer and his family. The series attempts to demonstrate how Jeffrey went from a disturbed youngster to a cold-blooded murderer by dissecting his past and explaining his interactions with his family, including his father Lionel, his mother Joyce, stepmother Shari, and grandparents. Despite this, few are aware that Jeffrey Dahmer had a younger sibling. But aren't you curious about where he is now? To put it simply, David Dahmer is Jeffrey Dahmer's younger brother. The Dahmers apparently allowed Jeffrey to pick out the name David for his younger brother, who is more than 6 years younger than him, as reported by Distractify. Although the show mentions David, Jeffrey's younger brother, who was born almost 7 years after Jeffrey, viewers are left wondering what became of the younger Dahmer. However, David disappeared once his brother's misdeeds were exposed in the 1990s. According to Esquire, he never went to see his brother in jail or to any of his court appearances. He now leads a fairly covert existence. Moving on, what happened to David? At the time of Jeffrey's imprisonment in 1991, David had already completed his studies at the University of Cincinnati in Cincinnati, Ohio. He broke all links with his brother when he was about 18 years old, which included not showing up to his brother's trial or hearings, as reported by the Cinemaholic. And well, we don't blame him. Since the previous public update in June 2004, David has established himself professionally, found love, and started a family. Shari, Dahmer's stepmother, appeared on Larry King Live, although she didn't reveal much about her younger stepson when questioned about him. But Shari assured King that he was quite content. Lionel disclosed that David had changed his name officially during the conversation, but he didn't go into detail. When asked whether he would follow in his son's footsteps to change his name after hearing of Jeffrey's success, Lionel claimed he had no plans to do so. To quote him, "I'm proud of the name Dahmer," he said to King. "My dad worked as both a barber and a teacher. Literally, he pulled himself up by his own bootstraps." In restaurants, though, the Dahmers sometimes go under aliases to avoid detection. According to the Cinemaholic, it was the last time David's family discussed him in public. David, under his new alias, has been quiet. Next up, what we know about the Dahmer household. They had a tumultuous relationship even before David was born. The Cinemaholic states that Jeffrey and David's father, Lionel, were often absent due to work and that his birth mother, Joyce, had a mental disorder, leaving her unable to take care of her kids. The competition for their parents' attention led to sibling rivalry, with Jeffrey resenting David for receiving more of it. However, Jeffrey resented David very swiftly, as reported by The Sun. When Joyce and Lionel split up in 1978, it also led to tensions between Jeffrey and David. As reported by HITC, once Joyce was awarded custody of her younger son, she moved the two of them to Wisconsin. At age 18, Jeffrey decided to finish high school at home. As reported by the Cinemaholic, he would go on to murder his first victim later that year. Let's talk about his new name. Now, all we've heard about recently is how David was so repulsed by his brother's actions that he finally decided to change his entire identity. But how much truth is there to this statement? Let's find out. David Dahmer officially changed his name to remove himself from his notorious brother's name and reputation, although his parents, Lionel and Shari, declared they were still pleased to carry the Dahmer name despite his atrocities. There is no concrete evidence in official listings that David has changed his name, and it seems unlikely that we ever will. But if that's what their parents said, then we guess that's what we have to believe for now. Up next, Joyce Dahmer also had a lot going on. Dahmer was reared by his parents, Lionel and Joyce, until he was killed in jail in 1994. Joyce was considerably more reserved than Lionel was about discussing her son's criminal behavior, even though the latter had come out several times and written a book about it. In his 1994 book, A Father's Story, Jeffrey's father, Lionel Dahmer, said that both of Joyce's pregnancies with Jeffrey and Jeffrey's younger brother David were challenging. The muscular stiffness, among other symptoms she had throughout previous pregnancies, led to the prescription of phenobarbital and morphine, he noted. In a Milwaukee Journal Sentinel story and elsewhere, Joyce is referred to simply as Rocky, although the source fails to provide any context for the choice. Later in life, Joyce abandoned the Dahmer surname in favor of Flint. Next, let's go over Joyce's problems. The harsh and chaotic sequences depicting Joyce's mental health issues in the limited series were intended to reflect the reality of her condition. Whether Lionel's account of Joyce's postpartum psychosis following the birth of David was based on actual events is unknown. Postpartum psychosis is very unusual, but it is a medical condition that may occur after after giving birth that you should be aware of. Psychiatrists had claimed that Rocky was not responsible for what her kid became, said the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, but she constantly worried. United Press International reports that Joyce, who had been struggling with her mental health before Dahmer's crimes were revealed, attempted suicide in 1994. There was a report that Joyce left the door open to her gas oven while it was on. She had a will and a letter when she was discovered face down in her house. Not to forget Joyce's bond with her son. Joyce revealed to writer Bill Jantz that she intended to go to the place where her younger son David, who was then using a different identity, was residing in the Midwest. Her work didn't pay well, and she was having financial difficulties. She informed Jantz that in 1996, her Fresno house had also been foreclosed on. According to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, until he died in 1994, Joyce often spoke with her incarcerated son. I asked him, do you still have these urges? She said at one point. He said, yes, Mom. I'm so glad I'm locked up. I'd be afraid of what I'd do if I weren't locked up. Joyce told the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel that she thought Jeffrey committed his acts for biological reasons and that he always claimed that if he could be of any assistance, he wanted to do anything he could. That's why before he passed away, Joyce planned to make his brain available for research. According to the Los Angeles Times, following Jeffrey's death at the hands of fellow convict Christopher Scarver, his brain was stored in formaldehyde, despite Lionel's wishes that it be burned, along with the rest of his corpse. His head was burned in December 1995. Then we have Grandma Dahmer. Despite the physical and sexual violence that he inflicted on Preston Davis and Billy Capshaw during his years in the military, Dahmer returned to his parents' home after receiving an honorable discharge in 1981, and that was the start of yet another violent streak. Dahmer's drinking problem was still an issue when he returned to Ohio, where he was detained for being intoxicated and disruptive. After his arrest, his parents, Lionel and Shari Dahmer, moved him to live with his grandmother in Wisconsin, where he stayed for the next 9 years. In an interview with the Milwaukee Sentinel, Jeffrey's dad said that sending his son to live with his grandmother was a bad decision, but that he lacked the insight to make any other choice. A whole new setting. They were in love with one another, and he often pitched in to assist her with household tasks. Dahmer's grandparents had thought that she would be a stabilizing influence on him, but instead he used their house as a backdrop for his horrific crimes. Finally, did he kill his grandma too? Dahmer didn't murder his grandma, no. Catherine died on December 25, 1992, when Dahmer was incarcerated at the Columbia Correctional Facility, as shown by her tombstone. Dahmer passed away on November 28, 1994, almost 2 years after his arrest. Nothing has been heard to suggest that the grandma and grandson are at odds with one another. Despite the events in her cellar, Catherine described Dahmer's arrest as awful in a 1991 story from the Fond du Lac Reporter, which can be found on newspapers.com. In addition, she felt intense affection for him. According to what she said, he would sacrifice everything for her. That's a wrap for this video. Have you finished the limited series on Netflix yet? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.